All right, Akim, Shalom, Shalom. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakan Kodash. Double honors to the apostles, the elders, great millstones, teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aquas, and may listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Kwai, back in here with another quick and Lord's will an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of just wanted to discuss a little bit about one of the reasons why Rome fell. And one of the reasons I want to discuss today is the government corruption and political instability. So, for those who don't know, recently there were a couple of shifts going on within the Canadian government, with one of the ministers resigning. I believe it was two ministers actually that resigned. There was, there was the finance minister, so Chrystia Freeland, here in Canada. Let me just pull it up. Okay, so you had, just bear with me on this. Okay, so you had the finance minister, right? And you also had, oh, she was also Canada's Deputy Prime Minister of Finance, okay? And then you also had, what's his name? Sean Fraser. He was the Minister of Housing, Infrastructure and Communities of Canada, right? So you had two ministers here um, that actually resigned, right? So what I kind of wanted to do was I wanted to read a little bit one of the reasons why Rome fell. So I'm on history.com, and it just gives about 8 reasons why Rome fell. And one of the reasons it gives was government corruption and political instability. So here it says, if Rome's sheer size made it difficult to govern, ineffective and inconsistent leadership will only serve to magnify the problem, right? So during the time of the Roman Empire, you had approximately you had what is known as the Caesars, these 12 Caesars, starting off with Julius, Augustus in that first dynasty, and then you had it was the Julio-Claudian dynasty, and then you eventually had the Flavian dynasty, ending off with Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian, right? So, continuing on here, it says, if Rome's sheer size made it difficult to govern, ineffective and inconsistent leadership only served to magnify the problem. Being the Roman emperor had always been, a particularly dangerous job. But during the tumultuous second and third centuries, it nearly became a death sentence. Civil war thrust an empire into chaos, and more than 20 men took the throne in a span of only 75 years, usually after the murder of their predecessor, right? So they're probably also including a lot of the times. So, from the standpoint of this, the way this articles are also written, it's probably also including, essentially when Jake, started coming up in there after, what's it called? After Domitian Caesars. Essentially, you had a bunch of Caesars, like Jake Caesars that became and they ruled after the fact. Like, for example, you had Marcus Aurelius, you had Septimius Severus, you had Basinius Niger. You had a lot of these different Caesars, and when you look at those particular Caesars, the countenance was very, very vastly different. When you look at the Caesars of Esau, for example, they had their beards. They were more. There was a period of time in Rome they were also known as the 5 great emperors, right? So not to go too off the topic, I just wanted to kind of just share that also, right? It also continuing on, it says the Praetorian Guard, the emperor's personal bodyguards, assassinated and installed new sovereigns at will, and once even auctioned the spot off at the highest bidder. The political rot extended to the Roman Senate, which failed to temper the excesses of the emperor due to its own widespread corruption and incompetence, right? So, I'm reading this to kind of show you some of the parallels of what Rome went through and what is kind of going on in this new revised Rome, right? You're seeing a lot of political instability that's going on within this government, right? And like the scriptures say, as a matter of fact, let me get it. Just bear with me on this. Let's go to Bible Gateway. Okay, let's see. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 9. And it says, wait, I believe this is in the NLT. Oh, let's just read it in NLT actually. It says, history merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing under the sun is truly new. Verse 10, it says, sometimes people say, here is something new, but actually it is old. Nothing is ever truly new. We don't remember what happened in the past, and in the future generations, no one will remember what we're doing now, right? And that's very, very true, and that's a very common saying in the world. History merely repeats itself. So that also proves that this kingdom is reincarnated, and then then we're back again. Like the scriptures talk about the spirit of the prophets is subject to the prophets, and so we're back essentially, in our lots, like we were doing whatever we were doing in our past lives, for example, right? So that's really the point. I kind of wanted to parallel some of those things that were going on back then versus some of the things that are currently going on right now, right? So let me get another precept here. What's that? Proverbs 25. And people are talking about and then that's another thing as also I've noticed as well. There's a lot of immense pressure on the prime minister for him to actually resign. That's another thing that I noticed also, with disappearing cabinets. So it shows you these people, and Jake needs to understand something very, very key and important here. Jake needs to understand that these people were never ever for you in the first place. Like, how many times do the prophets, the apostles, the elders have to constantly, like, show you, like, how much more proof do you need? How much more receipts do you need, that these people are not truly for you? And then it shows you also in times of trouble, these people are not even going to be there for you. They're not going to look out for you. You need to understand, speaking most specifically to you Israelites, that like to mock at the prophets and say that we're wearing superhero capes and all that. Well, you need to understand that these people were never ever for you in the first place, right? And you need divine intervention. Right? Let me get, okay, let me just go back to the KJV. Just hold on. Okay, this is Proverbs 25 verse 19, and it says, hold on. Okay, it says, putting confidence in an unreliable person in times of trouble is like chewing with a broken tooth and walking on a lame foot, right? So I'm just showing you the parallels, like imagine trying to walk and actually trying to, function with, a chipped tooth. A chipped tooth is not as, reliable as, a tooth that is not broken. And then we're trying to walk as somebody who's lame, like for example, like one of the persons that comes to mind is that so-called scientist, that he uses a wheelchair, Stephen Hawking, right? Imagine trying to, use your foot when you're lame, or like the guy that the apostles healed, like in front of the synagogue in the book of Acts. Like imagine, trying to walk on a lame foot. It's useless. That's really the point that I'm trying to get across here. You Israelites need to understand that these people are actually useless, and there's track record and there's receipts to prove that. Because if we just had to take, for example, what happened in the past couple years, starting off with 2020, they kept saying, for example, 2 weeks to stop the spread, right? And 2 weeks turned into what, approximately 3, almost 4 years, and then them pushing an experimental booster juice to essentially quote unquote stop the spread. Like, you Israelites need to become illuminated and understand that these people are not for you, and these people were never ever in your corner at all, right? So it'd be very interesting to see, what happens, when the holidays pass by and into the new year, with the new uh, Caesar coming into empower the U.S. With Trump coming into the power. This will be very, very interesting to see. But you Israelites need to understand that these people were never ever for you in the first place. And when times of trouble come around, these people are nowhere to be found. Excuse me. Let's go to let's go to Isaiah. Okay, this is Isaiah chapter 30, verse 1, and it says, "Woe to the rebellious children, saith the Lord, Yahweh, Bashan Yahushai, that take counsel, but not of me, that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk to go down into Egypt, and have an asked of my mouth, and strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh, and put and trust in the shadow of Egypt." Right. So it shows you, our people are one, very, very rebellious, and they don't actually, and that's one of the reasons you see the prophets out there, is to, build a healthy relationship with the Lord, because these people are not truly for you. And then, as a matter of fact, here's another point that just came into my mind. Why would you want to have heathens over you in the first place? These people don't actually have the mind, or have the mind, I should say, of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So already they're a bad candidate, whoever gets in, right? The scriptures talk about how two horns like a lamb and came down spake as a dragon in Revelation 13. So it doesn't really make a difference what color gets in there. That doesn't make a difference at all. These people are not truly ever and will be never for you. That's why it's important that the scriptures also talk about becoming illuminated and being an understand and having that understanding that who your enemy is, one, and then knowing your enemy is also knowing how your enemy fights. Okay, so I made a point about appointing. Let's go to Deuteronomy 17. In regards to having, proper leadership, well, someone essentially of your own kin over you, right? Deuteronomy 17, verse 15, and it says, and I'll just read down, and it says, thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy power shall choose. From among thy brethren thou shalt set king over thee. Thou mayest not set stranger over thee, which is not thy brother. So already any of these people who get into office are disqualified. So these people are not for you, right? Continuing on, verse 16, and it says, but he shall not multiply horses unto himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses, for as much as the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Neither shall he multiply wise unto himself, and his heart turn not away, neither he shall multiply himself silver or gold, right? So that's kind of the mentality, a lot of these politicians have. when they get into office. They multiply, the riches for themselves, and then when, like, for example, like during the Ovid situations, a lot of the times they were traveling and they were going while their city was, while their jurisdiction, for example, so it could have been either the province or maybe the municipality was a lockdown for whatever, for the Ovid situation. There they are, they're in luxury, they're in, they're going to their fancy, beach resort, they're going to their cottage and so on and so forth, right? So they're not even abiding by the rules that they create, right? So it shows you that these people don't care about you. Like, how much more proof do you need? you know? Verse 18, and it says, "And it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his kingdom, and he shall write him a copy of this law in the book which is before the priests the Levites, and it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of thy life, that he may learn to fear the Lord his power, and keep all the words of this law and the statutes to do them." Right? So, that's really important, because you don't have kings that rule over you and actually embody a healthy fear of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. They don't acknowledge the Lord, right? This is why King David was a very righteous and exceptional king, because he actually abided in the fear of the Lord, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. He was a man after the Lord's heart. Bear with me on this. Okay, this is Acts 13 and 22, and it says, "And when he had removed him, he raised up and unto them, David to be their king, to whom also he gave their testimony and said, I have found David, the son of Jesse, a man after my own heart, and he shall fulfill all my will." Right? So, that shows the vast difference between, King David versus, you have these people that are bickering and fighting over you, right? They're not even in accordance. Like the scriptures talk about, how if Satan to be divided against Satan, how shall that kingdom stand? Let me see if I could find that real quick. And there's just another point I also want to make, also, because, with all this political instability, already there is a very strong distaste for these leaders that lead this country, right? That lead these countries. I'm talking about like Canada and America and so on and so forth, right? Okay, let's see. Mark 3 and verse 24, and it says, "And if the kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end." Right? So it shows you, this is what's going on within their own political space, right? The Lord said he came not to bring peace on earth, but division, right? So, it shows you there's a strong division amongst, their own empire that's going on at the moment, right? There was another point I wanted to, okay. So I had this other article. Let me just get this real quick. I kind of wanted to read this. I thought it was very interesting. Just bear with me on this. Just bear with me. Okay, I can't find the particular oh, okay, hold on. Um, so pretty much it's just going into the confidence in the institutions, um, of how Canadians feel about the public institutions, right? And there was a strong, and what really stood out to me about from this was the fact that there was a strong, oh, here it is. It says overall, I'm just going to read this little bit here, and it says overall, more than 3 in 5 Canadians, 62%, reported a great or good deal of confidence in the police. Just under half of Canadians reported a good or great deal of confidence in the school system and in the justice system and in the courts. Meanwhile, one third of Canadians reported a good or great level of confidence in the federal parliament or the Canadian media, right? So that there's a strong level of distaste for the federal government and the parliament, right? So it reminded me, because sometimes, I see there's a strong distaste, for the PM at the moment, if you catch what I'm saying. Let me just grab this precept here. Oh, it's in Slovakia, it's in the Apocrypha. Okay, this is ooh, Slovakia. This is chapter. Okay, this is Second Ezra 15, verse 16, and it says, "For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall not stand in their power." And that's a sentiment I've been noticing a lot, within this past year and the past last year as well, because there was also that incident that happened. Also, I believe it was in the Bangladesh when the locals they stormed into the essentially like the royal house where I believe it's the president that stays, right? And there's also that strong distaste amongst the so-called royals, the royal family in the UK. Everywhere they go, there's a strong distaste for wherever it is that they attend, because these people are calling out essentially the BS of the quote unquote royal family, so that to lump them in there also with this precept. And it says, "A man shall desire to go into a city and not be able, for because of their pride the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. Men shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword, excuse me, and spoil of their goods because of the lack of bread." So it shows you the essentially the decline and what happens once there's a strong distrust for the powers that be, right? And then it trickling down onto the everyday people. That's when you see people's beast mode really come out, and like the scriptures say, the love of many shall wax cold, right? So um that's pretty much it. I kind of didn't want to make the lesson too long, but I kind of just wanted to, share a little bit of information in regards to some of the reasons why Rome fell. Because you have this idiot named Elon Musk. He's kind of making it sound like Babylon could be healed if uh, um, people just start producing more children. And that's far from the case. People are actually, especially women, I'm talking about mostly around in their 20s, they're more likely to delete their babies. They're not interested in that. And secondly, there was a lot more reasons. Of course, we know it's prophecy that they had to fall at some point. Jake had to rise up, like, right, like the scriptures talk about how the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and he give it to whoever he will, to roughly paraphrase. But some of the reasons, there was a lot more reasons as to why that empire fell, right? So it's not strictly just about a low birth rate, right? So anyways, I just thought I would bring out some of that information here, but hopefully this video is edifying. Just like to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Till next time, I say shalom.